Hello and welcome to the 4th episode of the Product Owner Podcast. With me today is Wilbert Seele from Prowareness this time. And today we will discuss all sorts of things focusing on product ownership in a scaled environment. What it is, we will learn soon, because Will has quite good opinions on this, which we'll learn about soon. But first, let me also point you to the previous episodes where we talked to product owners from the field, like Patrick de Groot from politie.nl, Dave West from scrum.org, and please also go look at and listen to their stories, because they also have very, very valuable learning points, which I hope you find valuable as well. Will, welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to have you on the show. Disclaimer: we work together in daily life, so but I promised to stay out of the shameful bits and keep it fun, entertaining, and valuable for the people at home. Yep. So let's start off with the custom stuff. Who are you? What's your relation to Agile, and furthermore to product ownership? Can you tell us a bit about how you came to where you are now?
Yeah, so I've been at Prowareness for about a year and a half now. Before that, I grew up at HP Enterprise, as it's now called. I was in software professional services, and I did a lot there with enterprise architecture, and I worked with some people working on IT for IT and building continuous delivery systems and infrastructures. And what we noticed there is that more and more of the market was leaning towards working agile, and a lot of more and more customers were demanding systems that supported working agile. So I took my chance there and kind of leapt into that, and actually started off with the way everyone starts off. So I did a Scrum Master course, PSM, which I did at Prowareness. That's how I got to meet some people here. And then going from there, went into SAFE, because HP was a gold partner at the time, I think still is. Started with a leading SAFE, and eventually did a SAFE program consultant there. And then made the switch to Prowareness, because this Agile stuff was a lot of fun.
That's always a good reason to switch for the fun, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I then made the switch, and I started here December of 2015, and kind of started pulling the whole scaling bandwagon within our region, within our team, and also wider. So I've kind of expanded from SAFE until then. I'm still very, very familiar with that. But also looking into things like LESS, like Nexus, like general organizational design and enterprise responsiveness. So that's how I got here, essentially. And as part of that, I keep running into the world of product owners, so to say, because there's the product owner the way Scrum describes it, and the way SAFE and LESS prescribe it, and there's of course what we actually see at customers, which sometimes isn't.
It can be quite a difference.
They share words. Yeah. So so that's kind of how I got started into that, and a lot of the coordination that the frameworks offer you is based upon how you set up product ownership within your organization, because the effectiveness of any team or team of teams that you build is very, very much dependent on the product they're working on.
Yes, of course, and this is of course the way almost all agile approaches are set up, to have this clear separation of concerns between focusing on optimizing value versus delivering value. Yeah. So this is a fundamental part of the agile setup, and especially in scaling, which increases complexity often.
Oh, dear,
yes. So and actually, you recently wrote 2 quite entertaining LinkedIn posts about this topic, focusing on the notion of a chief product owner and why that's generally a bad or even worse idea than lots of other stuff that you can do wrong.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I think it's very interesting to share with our viewers and or listeners a bit more on that topic. So I don't know if you want to start with the safe for work version or the not safe for work version,
yes.
because you did it in 2 parts.
Well,
we will link to them obviously,
It does lend itself to that joke. So I thought I might as well, as the Dutch say, put it in the open goal, so to say.
Yeah.
Right. So the idea, of course, and well, we can start at safe because that's the main one that has multiple product owners within a single framework. Is that when I got started there, you have in safe, and I got it explained for the first time as here's the team level, which has Scrum teams, which of course are formed from Scrum masters, from product owners, and then there's a program level on top of that with product manager, a release train engineer, and then levels on top of that. At the time, still at HP, I didn't get to do a lot of what I learned in practice. That only comes later, obviously. So the exact nature of that relationship was a bit iffy. And then you started companies, and they already have things going. And often, what you see is that they have an existing organizational structure.
Yes.
And to then go from there to Agile can be.
Yes, it's a lot of change for a lot of people.
Yeah, it
right?
can require change. So what you see then is they kind of look at a model like Scrum, like a framework, like Scrum or like Safe, and they see okay, what fits us, and then they see these levels, and there's not a lot of training there. There's not a lot of involvement from people in the know, so to say. So they tend to just re-implement the existing organizational structure with maybe some different forms of working and some different terms. And then what you see is that the product owner is often set as sort of a secretary for the teamwork. Yeah,
and this administrator, right?
Yeah, and it becomes this one-to-one link where they're not so much where the product they own isn't actually the product, but more the team.
Yes. And
they own the cycle of work. And then, of course, someone still has to own the product, right? Because, Scrum and Safe and all those other ones are very explicit about it. And of course, this isn't even a particularly agile thing because we had product managers before.
Yes.
So someone still has to do that. And then, of course, you get the other problem is that product manager and product management was an existing term. It was already there. So then to just go okay, you're a product manager, but not in this framework, so we're going to have to give you a different name. That won't fly because it's painful because you don't want to remove people from their existing functions. So then, of course, given that the product ownership at the team level is already hampered by not having a product that they own, and we're not going to change anything on the product management on. That already exists, so then someone has to coordinate the work over the teams on the product with the existing product managers and stakeholders. So, chief product owner. Which is just wrong upon wrong upon wrong. Because this way, no one actually owns the product.
So that's one thing that you've got against it, right? A chief product owner makes a lack of focus actually, and not having one clear decision maker with a vision, stuff like that, because you spread it all out.
It's the teams don't own a product; they just have their work organized in a way by someone that usually can't even organize the work all that much, because there's a chief product owner that has to organize work on maybe a product or maybe a department or give it a name. For a product manager that is an existing stakeholder of hopefully a product, but who doesn't actually interact with the team all that much because he has layers in between.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, right? It's unclear ownership, and no one can really make the decisions on this is where we go because this is what I take with me from a technical perspective. This is what I take with me from a business perspective because they're located at different parts of the organization.
Yes.
And then, of course. The other major issue is with the word chief.
So even if you had clear ownership, you still would say, don't call it a chief product owner.
I do.
Okay, why?
Because of the word. Because if you're going into organizational change, if you're going towards a new way of working with certain new terms like Scrum Master, like Product Owner, what you see is that the meaning behind the words sometimes isn't exactly clear. And in other terms, and at some other points, people rely way too much on what they perceive to be a meaning based on the word they see. So for a Scrum Master, for instance, even in organizations that have been Agile-ish for a while, is often still seen as some sort of team lead or team manager. Whereas we know that if there was a hierarchy within a Scrum team, the Scrum Master would be somewhere below the bottom.
As a facilitating leader.
As a servant leader, right? So if you institute something like a chief product owner, and often the people that get that title had titles before that, which often involved some form of management, they're gonna act like a chief because they're the chief product owner. They are the chief of the product owners.
Yes.
You know, it's a very, because all they have is the word. Well, maybe 2 days of training, but if you go to a PSPO, we don't talk about chief product owners because they're not in Scrum.
Exactly. Yeah.
So then go, well, I'm chief product owner, so I will be chiefing the product owners. And then, besides the existing problem of unclear product ownership, you're also introducing a hierarchy, essentially, which is going to hamper that step in maturity of your product owners even more, because there's a very clear ceiling they're going to bump into called the chief product owner.
Yes. So they're not going to reach maturity in, how do you say it, making their own decisions, owning their own product, whatever that may be in this setting, because we're obviously talking about large development efforts, right? And lots of dependencies. Maybe not an ideal situation yet with real feature teams, but some component teams, some difficulties there.
True.
This is the situation we're talking about, not the green fields,
no.
decoupled, all feature teams that have separate product owners with all their own vision. This is not the situation we're talking about. This is the real deal, like a real company transitioning from doing waterfall-ish development with 50 to 200 developers working on the same code base, which they think is the same product, which is also...
So the thing we're running into here very much is something called Conway's law, which is that it's a recursive law in the sense that it says that the architecture within the organization is going to take the shape of the setup of the organization, and vice versa. So the organization will shape itself to its IT architecture, which means you're gonna get back-end departments and middleware departments and channels and front-end and everything. And then if you start introducing product ownership, people are in a certain mindset. They think, okay, we need to make these existing silos, these existing components, agile. So we're going to place product owners there based on what the teams are doing. But that's not what product ownership is. Product ownership is about the backlog you maintain. It's not called a team backlog. It's called a product backlog.
Exactly.
It should be primarily from the product, and only then, as a product owner, you go look at what teams do I need to build this. Yes. And of course there's a maturity step to be made here, which is part of the reason why SAFe has this subdivision of different product owners with a product manager on top of it, is that we put one person in charge of the big solution that we're building, essentially at the end of what we call a value stream, and we put product owners underneath that can deal with either sub-products thereof or product features, which unfortunately I call team backlog, but
what's in the name, right?
but it's still up to that point, it's product focused, and product feature focused, and only then do you then make the steps to to teams.
Mm-hmm.
So what we see most often in cases where I see chief product owners within existing component areas is that they've gone completely the other way. They looked at, okay, these are our teams, and we need some way to control the amount of work these teams do, because they're always overloaded.
Always.
I mean, it doesn't matter, because, and then of course the natural reaction of people from that mindset that they're in, being victim to Conway's law and existing organizational setup is, okay, I'm going to have this group of product owners with this chief on top of it, regulate the amount of work that comes to my existing department, and the product, the actual product backlog is just somewhere.
Yes, yes, it's in all the individual backlogs, which need to be cross-coordinated, and before you know it, you're back in the old days where you had a project leader or project manager doing this kind of stuff, right?
You get this many-to-many relationship that there's going to be a lot of work on the different products, and there's a lot of work regulated on the team side, in the silo side, and somewhere these have to translate, but the person that Scrum and Safe and Less and all of those other frameworks explicitly put down, okay, this is the person that's going to coordinate this, you've not created that person. Instead, you've just created a lot of bureaucracy and overhead. Yeah, this is a very true point. And we also must note, once again, that the product owner role, it's a role, right? It's not a person. So especially when you're starting with Agile or starting with an Agile transformation, you have to look at, okay, what functions now in our current architecture, in our current setup, and what is the first step we can make towards agility, and then keep on making those steps, right? Yeah. And I think one of the major errors when seeking the help of a framework or other stuff you can use to help you on your Agile path is to think, okay, let's install Safe, and the first step of that is done. And then we're Agile, and we don't have to look back, and we can just go for 10 years without changing a thing. Yeah. It's you go to a customer, and they go like, yeah, we use Scrum, we do stand-ups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So to utilize your knowledge and expertise of scaling and Safe in particular, maybe can you contrast for our viewers and listeners, which setup do you think is better? The setup of Scrum, not mentioning anything beyond product owners at team level or possibly two-team setup. That's about as far as the materials go for the trainings, versus the setup that Safe employs, which says, okay, there's this thing, if you have coordination, you have to do it like this. Put in a project management, which is not always one person, can be a committee. It's kind of more towards the old hierarchical setup. Which do you prefer, and how would you frame it for someone that wants to?
So I'm seeing some assumptions here, and to get to the core of the question you're kind of asking, if I make an analogy, is which do you prefer, a screwdriver or a drill, and whatever works.
Yes.
I mean, it's all situational. It's all tools. I mean, even Scrum or Safe or Less or Nexus or Prince2 or DSDM or MSP, they're all means to an end, right? Yes. And especially in the case of Agile frameworks, they're means to an end, which is Scrum is a means to become Agile, is a means to deal with complex software development, with a set of unknown unknowns. So it depends, and it depends very much on the problem that you're trying to solve for your customer. And there's a lot of implicit assumptions in Scrum, and maybe still a bit in Safe, though they're getting closer. Is that a company is successful based on, can they solve the problems that their customer has, because people don't buy your products. In fact, as a company, the biggest mistake you can make is assuming that people buy your products. They don't. They buy a solution for a problem they're having. Right, so it begins with that. So what is the problem you're solving, and what is the solution you're offering? And then reasoning back from there is, can I deliver that solution with one team, or 2 teams, or 3 teams? Just go with Scrum. I mean, it's great. It's minimal. It adds the minimum amount of overhead.
And you only need one product owner.
But if your solution is a very big one, say a complete CRM system, or an ERP system, or anything that just requires a ton of people to work on many different facets that are interesting on their own, but only really get their value from being a part of this one solution that you're offering, then something like SAFe becomes much more interesting. And the other part that you said that I noticed a bit is that SAFe, the picture would imply hierarchy, right? Because you have a team level, you have a program level, you have that god awful value stream level, and the portfolio level, and but really, when you look at it, they are domains where people operate, where the teams are very much living in the Scrum schedule of often releasing, of being agile, of going to the customer, getting a feedback, and the product management, which you're right can be multiple people, but I tend to advise against, because I just like someone having a veto, because I hate democracy.
You hate compromises, or as we say in Dutch, polderen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly. Is that you have this person here, and in the view he takes is a longer term one, right? He thinks in terms of, or they, if there's multiple, think in terms of features over longer times, maybe at somewhat of a program epic level, but also the set of stakeholders they interact with tends to be a different one. It's the people that deal with the full solution that is being offered. Whereas on a team level, the teams and the product owners there, they deal with what are probably more end users, or people that deal with end users. So the realities they live in and the problem domains they're dealing with are very different. And so they both have their own source of stakeholders and work they want to do, and they're stakeholders of each other. But there should be no hierarchical link there. So and of course, and this is where the solution really only works if it's super integrated. Because of course, if you're in a setting where you have several solutions that you're offering that could also work together, like for instance, say a Google Calendar and a Gmail and a Google Maps and a few of the other ones, I wouldn't even introduce the level of coordination that SAFe offers, because it's too much. I do it as separate Scrum teams with separate product owners that are just stakeholders of each other.
Yeah, and they can talk, right?
And they can just talk.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So to make it a bit more practical, maybe for companies or product owners struggling with their position, or maybe seeing that they need to collaborate more, or need more coordination across their backlogs, across their teams, what would your advice be for a first step to take towards a better agile approach to large-scale development?
Right. So the trick we're falling into is, do we look at the organization as is and see, okay, what is that one thing we can do better? Maybe. I don't know. But if I'm going to start from that, I've already limited my set of options to just that direction. So if we want to approach this rationally, we have to let go of the existing organization in our thinking, just in that first step, to see if it is something that we can truly build upon, or if we need something else. So one of the things I would highly encourage you to start with is find your products. Find the solutions that you're offering. So really, with a group of people that are very customer focused, come together and really look at what are the problems that we're solving, and then reason back from that and see, okay, can we work within the confines of the existing organization to support this? to make sure that we are actually delivering on these in an agile manner. So can we become responsive on this, or do we need to draw some new lines? And I say that very easily, of course.
You say it quite lightly, yes.
Because this is a big thing, right? But can we do this in an efficient manner, or should we do this, or is the pain that we get here from not being as efficient as we could here still less than what it would take for us to draw new lines and maybe get some things out? And these are questions that you can only ask and answer if you are aware of the problems that you're solving and how those value streams look like.
So I get what you're saying, but I'm also sure that there are some people, when they hear this, they say, oh, great, so we go back to the drawing board, everything is up for grabs, up for discussion, but we invested already so much in our current situation, in our current product research, in our current stuff.
Yeah.
What about that? We invested in that stuff. Shouldn't we just go on with that?
Yeah. No, you shouldn't. Or well, maybe you should, but you shouldn't care. One of the things, what you're describing here is what's called the sunk cost fallacy, which is, okay, we've already expended a lot of effort and time and money, and we're here now, so we have to keep on doing this thing. No, you don't. All the time and the money and the effort you've invested, it's already gone.
Sad but true.
Sad but true. You're not gonna magically earn it back. That's accounting wise, yes, but not in reality.
No, there's no true value in accounting. Sorry for all accountants, right?
No. There's a lot of value there. They're very, very important people. Very, very important people. Please don't shoot me. No, but the thing is, the only sane way to approach a problem like this is just looking, okay, with the information we have now, and this being the goal we want to reach, with the effort we're going to expend from this moment on, is it worth it?
Yes.
And if the answer is no, then don't do it and go do something else. But don't take previous expenses of any form into account when making future decisions. It's irrational because it's gone. The only thing that matters now is, with what you're going to spend now, are you going to make it back? Is it worth it, or should you be doing something else?
Yeah, that's very good insight, and I think this is something we can all relate to on any scope, on any level, even in personal life, right? Because it's a very human thing to think about this way.
It's absolutely human. We've both read Thinking Fast and Slow, so free book bump there.
We will link it in the show notes
because it deals with this sort of thing. But even if you look at recent examples of this, look at Google, what they did with Google Glass or Project Era, right? The modular smartphone. They were very far in this. They had practical prototypes. They were ready to go to market, and there was already a lot of expense in this. And these people, they just looked at what they had at that time, and they were like, okay, do we want to go to market with this? Is it going to, give us what we need? And in both cases, the answer was just no, it's not going to deliver. It's not what we thought it was.
Yes.
And so we're not going to do it. And does that mean they lost a lot of money on it? I don't think so. I think they learned some very valuable lessons along the way. But they would have lost way more if they just kept doing the course from, we started it, so we better finish it.
Yes, and they freed up a lot of resources, creativity, money for doing other stuff, right? So,
exactly.
Like the Google car, which also is, I think, not gonna launch anytime soon. But there's lots of stuff they did succeed at.
Yeah,
so
work on valuable things. And
yes.
the thing about accepting that you live in a complex environment with many unknowns, more than you can at one point answer, is that even if you have the best information when you start, it might just not be valid a week later. So the only sane and rational way to approach this is every day when you wake up, reevaluate what you're doing and see, is this still the right thing to do?
Yes. Wow. I think that really sums it up for this moment. Obviously, we are here. You now have the floor and the camera. So if there's anything that you feel we haven't shed light on enough on the topic of chief product owners and why they should be abolished forever, and or maybe the sunk cost fallacy and a bit of organizational design. Is there anything you still want to add or clarify or like really drive another point, one of those points home a bit extra, not another point, that's for another show?
No, so the main takeaway I'd want to give is take product ownership seriously, and really at all times reason not just from the product, but from the problem that the product intends to solve. And your organization should always be designed in such a way. And that means change every so often, because what works today may not work tomorrow. But always think from that problem that you're solving, from the solution you're offering, and always be ready to redesign yourself in such a way that you can be better at offering that solution. And everything follows from that in terms of how you set up product ownership, if you're going to use SAFe, if you're going to use Less or Nexus or Scrum or Kanban or whatever. It all starts with what problem you're solving and what value you're adding to the world.
Cool, thank you very much. Then as a final rounding off, do you have any speaking engagements? Are you on Twitter? Do you have articles you are currently writing that people can find soon on your LinkedIn? Where are you active and where can people hook up with you, so to speak, intellectually, of course?
Yeah. So I'm active on LinkedIn and Scrum.nl, which is where most of my articles are posted. I have a Twitter, but I tend to not tweet and merely post links to my LinkedIn there. So this is one place where you can find me. I speak, I recently spoke at the Scaled Agile Market here in Delft. Available for speaking engagement, obviously. And you can reach me here at Prowareness. So.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. Then as a final goodbye, we have this thing on the podcast, which is cheesy, but it's fun. I'm becoming to appreciate it more and more. Yeah. We count off, and then we just say goodbye in unison while watching the viewers. So, shall we do that?
We can do that.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Goodbye.